Hello guys, welcome back to Codeaamy, and I'm back with my new video in our Dart and DSA course. In today's video, we are going to learn about functions in Dart language. So let us get started. On the screen you can see I have opened my Dart pad, and in this Dart pad we are going to learn about functions in Dart. We are going to practice over here. Let me zoom this a bit, and I hope everything is visible right now. Yes, it is. So before we get started with functions in Dart, first let us understand what are functions. So basically a function is a group of code or a set of instructions that we have grouped together, and when we call the function, that group of code is executed in that manner. Let's say I have a butler and I give him some instructions, like every day he has to get up in the morning, go outside, buy milk, buy bread, come back home, boil the milk, apply butter to the bread, and give me a glass of milk and butter bread for my breakfast. Now I cannot tell every day these instructions to my butler. So what I will do is I will make him understand that these are the morning routine that he has to do. And I just have to tell him morning routine and he will do all these tasks. So what I did, I assigned him a task called as morning routine, and inside that big task, many minor tasks have been assigned. This is what a function does. So in programming language, when there are set of codes that we have to run again and again, say repeatedly, we create a function and then we call that function so a computer knows what steps he has to take or what code he has to run. Okay? So let us get started with creation of function. So in Dart, there are different types of functions and we are going to check all of those functions right now. Okay? So without taking much ado, let's get started. So now we will start with our normal function. Okay, our normal function. So what is a normal function? A normal function has a data type, or let's say return type over here, and it will have a function name, parenthesis, and curly brackets. This is the syntax of creating a function in Dart language. As we all know, in Dartpad we have to run our void main function. Okay, and this is the only function that we have seen till now. So first let us write our void main function over here. So we have void main and this is our function. Okay, as you can see over here, we have given a data type, we have given a function name, the parenthesis that we have over here, and the curly brackets. So whatever is inside these curly brackets is the scope of the function. Means this is the starting point of the function and this is the ending point of the function. Anything which is outside this curly brackets won't be the part of that function. Okay, so this is the function. Now let's say I have to add two numbers. So what I can do is I can create variable. Okay, so here I will create two variables, variable 1 and variable 2, which will be number 1 and number 2. So I create int number 1 is equal to 10, and let's say int number 2 is equal to 22. And what I will do is I will create one more variable where it will hold the addition of these two numbers. So int number 3 is equal to number 1 plus number 2 colon over here, semicolon over here. And I will do is print, and once I hit the run command, you can see on the console that we should get the total of 32. Yes, perfect. That means what we have done here, we have created a variable which has 10 as its value, the variable 2 number 2 which has 22 as the value, and int variable number 3 which will have number 1 plus number 2 together, the addition of these two values, and we are printing number 3. Now this is inside our main function. Let us remove this code outside our main function and add that into our own function. So I will create a function called as add two numbers. Okay, so add two. Now as you can see over here, we are not returning anything from this function. Now what is return type? the data type that is returned from a function is called as the return type of that function. We will explore that further, but right now we are having void as the data type. Void means we are not returning anything. Let me just create the same variables, or let me just copy it from here and I'm pasting it over here. This is the function. Okay, if I'll hit run right now, nothing will happen because our void main is empty, and only the things which are inside void main will run. Okay, so now what I will do is, instead of writing everything inside, I will just call this function. How to call a function? It's by function name and parenthesis. So what is the function name over here? Add two numbers. So add to number. Over here we need s because it should be plural. So add two numbers is our function name, and parenthesis given a semicolon over here. Run, I will get the answer 32 again. So I've hit run over here, and as you can see, we have got 32 as the answer. Now what we have done is, we have extracted the set of code that we were giving to a computer and we compiled them into a function. Now whenever I will call this function, all this set of code will run. This helps us in calling the repetitive task that we are going to do. Okay. Now let's say if I want to print this 10 times, all I have to do is copy paste it 10 times and just hit run once, and it will run that function again and again and again. Okay. But if you can see, this function is of no use for us. Why? Because these numbers are hard coded and we cannot take values from user or anyone, and we cannot use this function to our optimum use, or let's say to our full potential. So what we will do is, we will create this function as a dynamic function, or let's say we will create this function as a function with parameters. Okay, so function with parameters. Okay, what are parameters? Parameters are an argument that you can pass inside the function which can be used by the function. So parameters are arguments or values that you can pass inside the function which can be used by the function itself. So again, this is the same function that we are going to alter. I am going to pass two parameters, and to pass two parameters we have to create two variables. So in this parenthesis we are going to create two variables. Let's say int num1 and int num2. Over here we have created these two variables. Instead of assigning the value 10 and 22, we will assign the value num1 to number 1 and num2 to number 2 over here. So what I'll do is, I will remove this 10 and I'll add num1 over here. I will remove this 22 and I'll add num2 over here. Now you can see we are having an error. This is the red line over here. And if you can see, I'll just take it over here, we can see two positional arguments expected but found 0. That means our function is expecting two values, but right now 0 values have been given. So what I'll do is, I will give two values. Now it's integer, so I'll pass two values over here. So let's say I'll pass 10 and 22 as we did before, and you can see now the error is gone. And if I hit run button, I will get the same answer back. But what I've done is, instead of writing the number over here inside the function, I have passed this number from here where we are calling the function. We are passing the values 10 and 22 inside our function, which is later used by our function into this addition and subtraction, or into this addition of two numbers, which is later used by our function to add these values. So what we did, we called the function over here. While calling the function, we passed this value 10 and 22. This value 10 went over here to number 1. This value 22 went over here to number 2. And we are creating the variable. So int number 1 is equal to num1. So from num1 this value went over here, and from this is equal to sign, it went over here at number 1. Same happened with number 2. And int number 3 is equal to number 1 plus number 2. Hence we added 10 plus 22, getting answer 32. So what we have done is, we have created a function with parameters. Now we are having a bit of breathing space over here. What I can do is, I can copy this function and I can have my small calculator of adding two numbers. Let's say I want to add over here, let's say I want to add 34 plus 85. 34 plus 85, I'll hit run and I will get the answer. The answer is 119. So this is my small mini calculator of adding two numbers. Let's say I want 102 plus 18675, any random numbers, and if I'll hit play or run, I will get the addition of those numbers. With passing the parameters, now we have got flexibility in our function, which was stagnant over here with number 10 and 22. Now we can pass the numbers that we want inside our function. This is why we need functions with parameters, because sometimes you want a value that you get from our application or from user, and then run a function. So the value that you get from the user can be passed into our function as a parameter. Let's say a small example. Live example is when the user opens your application, there is a pop-up which asks the user its name. Okay, which asks the user its name, and when the user enters the name and presses the save button, the name that user has entered, that name will be saved into our database. So how can we write this function? So coming back over here, void save user's name into database. Okay, this is the function that we have created. Now what I will do is I will create my function here. So string name is equal to, let's say my name is Shri right now. Now here we will write a function of saving the name into our database. So let's say we will write a comment over here which will execute or we will print right now for that. Let's say print the name is, this is a representative of saving the name into our database. Now if I'll call this name over here, this function over here, okay, and let me hit run, the name Shri is saved into database. But then again, I don't think there is only Shri name in this entire world. With different people we have different names. So what we will do is we will pass this name value when the function is called and when the user presses the save button. Okay, so what I will do is I will create a string variable over here, let's say string name or user name, and I will write this value over here, username. And now when this function is called, what I can do is we can get the data that the user has typed in our text field and pass that name value into this function. So I'll do is Shri over here, string done, run. Again it should be same. The name Shri is saved into the database. Say Iron Man installs my application and there's a pop-up which asks him his name, and he hits run, and you can see the name Iron Man is saved into database. So this is how we can use functions. Use functions with parameters to create a bit of a dynamic function. Okay. The next type of the function is a function with a return type. Now if you can see over here, all we have done is used void, and void, right? But now what we are going to do is we are going to use a return type over here. We are going to use a return type. Again, addition of two numbers, right? That's what we are going to do. So I will write add, or let's say we'll go with subtract now, so that we can keep both the functions, parenthesis closed over here. Now what I will do is number 1 is equal to 22 is equal to 10. Number 3 is equal to number 1 minus number 2 over here. Done. But then what is the difference between this function and the function that we have made over here instead of this plus sign, apart from this plus and minus sign? Now what we are going to do is we are going to return this number 3 value over there. So what I'll do is I'll write return. What we have done, we have returned a number 3. So this value will be returned. Now we have to give a data type as we have seen, or return type. So what is the return type? The return type. So what is the return type? The return type is int over here. So I will write int. So int subtract two numbers. Return type is 3. Coming back to our void main, let me remove this right now, and I will create a new variable over here. I'll say subtracted number is equal to, and now I will call this function over here. What I'll do is I will call, and what happened right now is this int value or this int variable that we have created, it took a value from this function which is coming out from here. Variable took a value from this function which we are returning from here. Now I will create a print function. So print subtracted number. Let me just copy paste this over here. subtracted number. Now if I'll hit run, you can see we should get the answer over here, 12. So 22 minus 10 is 12, right? So what we did, we created a function, subtract two numbers. The answer that we are getting when this function is run or when this function ends, that answer is returned or removed out from the function and is then assigned to this variable. And then we are printing this variable over here. Now, function with return type and with parameters. What we're going to do, function with return types and parameters. Same function subtract. What I'll do is 2. Instead of number 1, I'll do is num1, and for number 2, I will do is num2 over here. Right? Number 3 will be same. Now in subtracted number, I want number 1 to be 22 and number 2 to be 10 over here. Right? As we passed the value in this function when we called it, we can pass the value in this function when we are calling this function as well. If I'll hit run, you can see answer 12 again, right? So no change, but this function again has become dynamic. Now I have a mini subtraction calculator, but that I can assign to a value immediately when I call that function. So if I'll do 20 and 2 over here, I should get the answer 18, right? Let's do something different. I'll do 10 minus 22. I should get answer in negative, right? Minus 12. So this is working exactly how we expected it to be. So what we checked a normal function. We checked functions with parameter. Then we checked function with return type. And then we checked function with return type and parameters. Coming back to our function with arrow sign or lambda function. It will have an arrow sign in the function. Okay. So let me come back over here. Let us create a addition and subtraction function. Okay. Multiplication. We have seen addition, we have seen subtraction. Now we are going to see multiplication. So what I'll do is, and over here I'll write int number 1 is equal to 2, int number 2 is equal to 8, print number 3. This is a multiply two numbers. First let us run this over here. 16, 2 8s are 16. Okay, so this is perfect. Now let us convert this function into our lambda or arrow sign. Okay, so how can we convert this function into our arrow sign? So what I'll do is, instead of this curly braces, I will remove the curly braces over here. I'll give an arrow sign. How to give an arrow sign? Equal to and the right arrow that I want over here. Now what I will do is, I will write print, right? And over here all I can do is I can directly multiply the number. So how I can multiply? 2 into 8. I can multiply 2 into 8 over here. And you can see the answer will be 16. Now over here, this we have written that directly in the print statement. Why? Because when we use this lambda function, we cannot have multiple lines in that function. Okay, we cannot have multiple lines inside that function. So now what I will do is, I will create this lambda function and also pass parameters into that function. So here it will be int num1, right? Num2. So lambda functions. And over here what I will do is num1 into num2. Now when I'll call this function, I have the ability to pass the parameters over here as well. So 2 and 8. If I'll hit run, I will get 16 again. I can also write 8. So 8 8s are 64. So you can see how we have created this function. Void multiply two numbers. Okay. Over here int number 1, int number 2. These are the two parameters that we are taking. We just want this function to print this number 1 into number 2. If it is a single line code, you can write that without this curly brackets. You can write that with this arrow function. Let us create an arrow function with a return type. Function with arrow sign or lambda function with parameter. Let us create a function of division. We will divide and we will assign that divided value to our variable and then print that variable. Two numbers. We are passing the parameters int num1, int num2, right? And then I want them to return the division. So num1 divided by num2. The error that we get here is the value of type double can't be returned from the function which has the return type of int. So instead of this int, I will do this as double, and now this error is gone. Okay, now let us create one more variable over here. Divided number is equal to, let me come down and divide two numbers. Let me copy this over here and let me add two numbers. Let's say 22 and 45. I don't know how this will work. And just print this number. Print, and here is the value 0.48 recurring. Okay, 0.489. This is the value that we have got. So this is how we have created a lambda function which is returning a value. Okay, from the parameters that we have passed, it is dividing the numbers and returning that value which we are assigning to a new variable and printing that variable. And what we are doing? We are printing that variable. So these are few of the functions in our Dart. Okay, there is one more called as anonymous function. Anonymous function. Now what are anonymous functions? Functions without any name. Without any name are called as anonymous function. Now what are anonymous functions? Functions without any name are called as anonymous functions. We cannot call them. Why? Because they don't have any name. So how can you call a thing which doesn't have any name? But there are some properties or some places in Flutter where you will need these anonymous functions. They directly start with parentheses and have curly brackets. They directly start with parentheses and have curly brackets, and whatever you write inside this is completely valid. But in Dartpad we cannot have them. And where do you call these functions? On button pressed or on tab, where you know that we have to give this value or we have to give this function, and we don't have to call this function separately anywhere aside. This is where you will use this anonymous function. These are few of the functions in Dart. I hope this was easy for you to understand. The normal function, function with parameters where we pass the values in our parentheses, function with return type where we return a value from our function, function with return type and parameters where we also have a return type and we also have parameters which are used inside the function, and then function with arrow sign or lambda function over here that we have created. Also function with arrow sign or lambda function with parameters. We are passing two parameters inside our function and then returning the value over here as you can see, and then anonymous functions. The functions part in our Dart is clear. In our previous videos we checked how we create variables. In this video we checked how we create functions. And in next video, we will check about if else and for loop. If you are new to my channel, please like, subscribe to my channel, share this video. This is a series of Dart and DSA, data structure algorithm. But before starting with DSA, we are going to completely finish Dart and then we will go with DSA. So please spread the word. Bye-bye. Thank you. Take care.